Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Do you folks know why the face of the ex-Muslim community left Islam?
I came to another point which was about um, the sun sinking in a muddy spring, but I researched it and I put that aside too. I just dismissed that information. But that would become one of the most difficult things in the end. I thought about the fact that the Quran tells a story of where a guy goes to the west and finds the sun sinking in a muddy spring. And I asked questions about it. I tried to find the answer to it, and the answers were just not satisfying. It was totally absurd. That question was one of the harshest ones. It disturbed me so much.
So Muslims respond to this quite simply by saying that this is referring to the perspective of Dhul Qarnayn. That's all there is to it. I mean, these verses can be found in Surah Al-Kahf, which is one of the most popular chapters of the Quran. Millions of Muslims recite this on Fridays. And not only that, but they read it without ever getting doubts because they just don't take it literally. On the other hand, the face of the ex-Muslim community did take it literally, and that was the reason for him leaving Islam, well, at least one of the main reasons. And not only that, but he puts in a lot of effort into refuting the claim that this is referring to the perspective of Dhul Qarnayn.
Mohammed seems to have believed that the sun is just moving above there somewhere, and even created the fantasy that the sun lands in a muddy spring. The sun, which is far bigger than the earth. Many Muslim apologists of our time try to argue that the Quran verse is misunderstood. Now, Muslim apologists try to explain this by saying, A. This is explained from Dhul Qarnayn's perspective. Or B. He sees it as if it was setting in a muddy spring. But it's clear why they say that. The text doesn't contain any of that. In the text, it is Allah who clearly describes that Dhul Qarnayn went to the setting place and found the sun setting in a muddy spring.
In any case, I made a video about this in October 2019, around 2.5 years ago, addressing the claim that this is a general truth. 2 days ago, he responded by saying that he never claimed that it was a general truth.
Whether he finds the sun literally setting in a muddy spring, or he finds the sun appearing as if it's setting in a muddy spring, what the text describes here is that Dhul Qarnayn comes across something. The same word is used again in the same verse, when it says he found near it a people. Is this as if now he didn't really find those people? But our friend Farid here spends a huge chunk of his refutation video, and he acts like I am making the claim that found it can only mean that this is a general truth, an objective reality, and then tries to refute that, a straw man which he built in his own head. Farid, I'm not the one making the claim that this word is necessarily in reference to something literally happening.
So hey, if it's not a general truth, then why did you exactly leave Islam? If this verse can be about Dhul Qarnayn's perspective, then why were you so bothered by it? And when Muslims say that it's about his perspective, why did you say that this is utter garbage?
So when the Quran verse here says he found it setting in a muddy spring, it means that he saw it that way, not that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring. First off, as a lover of linguistics, I have to say that that's absolute garbage.
And now here comes the good part. Shout out to Detective O. Will, who actually caught this manipulator cutting 1 second from his video in order to refute me. First of all, a quick reminder of what his claim is.
And he acts like I am making the claim that found it can only mean that this is a general truth, an objective reality. A general truth, a general truth.
So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be playing both clips, the original clip and his quoting of his original clip with the text on the right side with the highlighted words so you can see what was removed from the first clip.
Many say that the translation is simply not clear, and that you need to read it in a context, that the word used for finding it actually describes the situation only from Dhul Qarnayn's perspective, not as a general truth. So when the Quran verse here says he found it setting in a muddy spring, it means that he saw it that way, not that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring. Many say that the translation is simply not clear, that the word used for finding it actually describes the situation only from Dhul Qarnayn's perspective. So when the Quran verse here says he found it setting in a muddy spring, it means that he saw it that way, not that the sun actually sets in a muddy spring.
So now the question is, why did he remove that part where he says, not a general truth? Well, that's because his goal in his main video is to prove that it was a general truth. But now he's hiding that from his audience. He's trying to pretend that he never made that claim. Now, here's the crazy thing about this whole situation. Just bear with me. The main reason, okay, so one of the main reasons to why you left Islam is because of this. You believed that the sun literally goes down into a murky spring according to Islam. And over the past few years, you learned a few things about Islam, and you ultimately learned that you were mistaken about this specific point. Due to this, you said,
Fareed, I'm not the one making the claim that this word is necessarily in reference to something literally happening.
yes, you did, and now you've been caught. You know what you could have done? You could have just said, okay, listen, guys, I made a mistake, and yeah, Islam is still false. However, I made a mistake about this one thing, and yeah, I guess I did leave Islam because of me misunderstanding this one thing. طيب, and if you did say that, you wouldn't be like receiving hugs and flowers from Muslims, but at least you would have a fraction of respect for simply admitting that you made a mistake. But instead, you manipulated your own video in order to do what? In order to win 1 point over me? Now, there's so much for me to say, and there's so many ways for me to rub this in, but to be honest, I just can't be bothered to. Remember when you started your channel, you were saying things about how you wanted to refute Islam fairly and others weren't doing a good job at that? Well, look at where you are now. You're manipulating your own videos in order to score points. But now you just ended up looking desperate. طيب, I don't really have much more to say, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And I felt so fucking awful. I wanted to cut my penis off.